In this video, I'll show you how I made my door breach base. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Brushstroke basing guide. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through the steps I took for making the door breach base for my Blood Angels Space Marine. And then in part 2, I'll take you through the steps of how I painted it. So if you've not subscribed so far, then please hit the subscribe button now, and don't forget to hit the bell so that you'll get notifications of all my new videos. Okay then, so starting out with a standard GW 40mm base, and then I'm going to add to that a piece of old scenery kit I was kindly given. I believe it's from a BASILICANum kit, I'm not too sure. So the first step then obviously is to cut away each of the doors carefully, and for that I just followed the groove around the outside with an X-Acto saw. Once the doors had been cut out, I glued them back into place as if they'd been kicked open. You'll also notice that I actually bent and distorted them. Now to do that, I found the only way to get the plastic hot enough was to actually submerge them in boiling water and then to bend the warm and soft plastic over the handle of my X-Acto knife. So obviously, word of warning here, if you're going to be trying something similar, then please do take extra care when dealing with boiling water and trying to heat plastic in this way. It's probably not the safest thing, so please do be very careful. Now it was a case of trying to determine the best position for the door in relation to the base. So what I thought would be quite cool is to have a step to give a bit of interest and height to the base itself. And for that, I'm going to use some 5mm thick extruded polystyrene. Just going to use the base itself as a template to help cut the piece to the right size and shape that I need. With my step now cut out, what I'm doing is just pressing to compress the foam to give an uneven and rough texture to the surface. And now I just want to make sure by checking that the base and the foam align before supergluing the piece in place. It is worth pointing out that the super glue does actually melt this type of foam, so if you're looking to do any kind of neat joins or construction work with the foam, then definitely use PVA glue. In this particular case, I'm just building up some structure, so it'll all be covered in the end, so a little bit of melting doesn't really bother me. Okay, so with the step in place, just need to try and work out where the door threshold is going to be, so I know where to tile up to. I'm also looking obviously to make enough room for the Marine to be in the doorway, so I need to set it quite far back. Now to indicate where the threshold's going to be, I'm just going to put in a piece of thin balsa wood, which I've cut to the same width as the doorway, and I'm just going to glue that onto the base so that I know where I can start tiling from. Okay, so we've got the basic structure of the base now in place, and we've got a good indicator of where the threshold's going to be, so we're now ready to start adding some tiles. And for the tiles, I'm going to use these, which is a product from Juilla that I've found. I'll add a link in the description below for all the products as usual. But as you'll see, these are particularly great because they behave almost like the real tile. So you can crack them, you can break them, you can chip them, you can crumble them, and they behave and look just like the real thing. To fix the tiles in place, I'm going to cover the base now with a layer of PVA glue. This has two main advantages. The first being that it won't melt the foam underneath like a super glue would, but also the longer drying time gives more time to position and maneuver the tiles. Then it's just a case of taking a tile at a time and placing it where you need it. I think for the edge of the step, it might be quite cool to have the tiles overhanging slightly. It gives an opportunity then to maybe break them and make them look a bit more aged by having damage and wear and tear. And because the glue's still wet, I can just slide these two tiles forward and make room for this tile here without any problem. Then comes the fun bit, which is breaking the tiles. So with the glue still wet underneath, we're going to take the handle of a paintbrush and press gently into the tile until it cracks. And you'll find that the wet glue still holds all the pieces in place for us, but we get a realistic looking damaged tile. For this piece, I'm just going to break these few tiles because I want to give the impression that they're actually breaking under the weight of the marine that's coming through the doors. Now the PVA glue is fully dried, I'm going to attach the doorway piece to the base with some gel-based super glue from Gorilla Glue. Next, I'm going to add some damage and wear and tear to the edge of the tiles. So for this, I used a couple of techniques. I used my craft knife to scratch and score the edges, and then to break off larger pieces, I actually used my clippers. I recommend you take your time with this step and build the wear and tear up gradually. It's far easier to take a little bit more off than it is to try and put a piece back. And the other thing that I would say is keep all of the waste material that you generate, all the pieces and the dust, because we'll be using that later. Okay, so now we're going to take all that waste material and put it to good use as debris under the step. Any larger pieces can actually be crushed using your clippers and they can make smaller or finer dust. And then it's just a case of taking some PVA glue, running it along the edge and sprinkling the debris on top. Now I'm going to build up the edges of the base and give the doorway a firmer footing. But before I do that, I just want to add some extra stability to the doorway by adding some pins. So for that, I'm just going to take some paper clips and snip those up into little hooks. Then using a small hand drill, I drilled a small hole into the bottom of each side of the doorway. And then fix the paperclip hooks in place using some gel super glue from Gorilla Glue. With the pins now secure, I'm going to build up the side of the base using some yellow-grey milliput. This is a two-part putty, so you have to mix the yellow and the grey elements together in equal quantities. I recommend that you add a bit of water to your hands so that it doesn't stick, and then just mix that together until you have one consistent ball of putty. Now I'm just going to take small quantities of the putty and I'm going to work that around our pins and the edge of the base to build it up to the shape that I'm happy with. So I've built the putty up to a shape that I'm happy with and I've left it for 24 hours now to be fully dry and solid as a rock. And now I'm just going to add a couple of extra tile pieces to fill in some gaps. For this, I'm just going to put in some PVA glue as before and cut some tiles to fit. For the hinges, I've just snipped up some 1.5mm styrene rod to lengths of around 5mm. I've just used my clippers just to clip those off, and I'm going to glue those in place with some gel super glue. Similarly, I've cut up some 1mm styrene rod for the discarded shell cases to lengths of about 2mm. I haven't used my clippers for this, but used my craft knife just to stop them from flying all over the room. And to hold each shell in place, I've just used a small dot of PVA glue. And the final step now is just to add some texture to the outside of the doorway. And for that, I just covered the area with some PVA glue and sprinkled on some fine sand. And that's the construction of the base complete. So all that remains to be done now is to prime it. And for that, I like to airbrush on Vallejo surface primer in black, and then do an additional zenithal highlight with surface primer in grey. And that's it for part 1 of this basing guide. Part 2, the painting of this base, will be coming up very soon. So please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do give it a like, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.